All right, so let's begin. I guess we should start with some intros. Or Dave, you want to start us off with just a little sort of overview?
Cool. We started talking to the guys at Zero-Ohm about what their system is, and a big bugbear for us was having to use 100-volt speakers in commercial installations, and these guys just had the answer for us. We've used it in about 9 jobs now, and used it successfully. It's been really, really good, and I thought you guys should hear what they had to say.
All right, so I guess I'll introduce myself quickly. So I'm George Dracopoulos, one of the co-founders of the company. Demetrius?
Yes, hi, I'm Demetrius, as you guys can all see from my name. Pleasure to see everyone here today. And I want to thank you, as Dave said earlier, for taking the time in your busy day just to hear us out here, just to preface everything and just to put everything into context. I mean, and as Dave said, and he's used it in his installations, we have to understand that we provide a solution, right? We're not saying that we're for every single job out there, but what we do provide is that we give an alternative to 70 volt, right? Whatever installation you have on 70 volt, that is, what we can provide, our solution that is, and can help in certain projects, if not, a plurality of your projects. So thank you for taking the time to hear us out. We'll have a little presentation on just, the concept and the idea behind our units and our technology. And then we can open the floor for some questions. But rest assured, whether you have a question here or not, I mean, you can email Dave or you can email us directly, and then we'll be glad to answer. We always answer any question, within a timely manner. So rest assured, we're always open for any questions. Thank you.
Just to translate it into UK, 100 volt.
I was just about to say that. Yes, I was about to say that.
You're right. You're right. We're talking to Europe. My apologies. And you asked a question before, Dave. Has anybody heard about us, or has anyone seen us in ISC? We've been to 2 or 3 shows, George, at ISC.
ISC, we went to the last 2 regular shows, right? We were there 2 weeks before the lockdown.
Yeah, right before COVID. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And Antoine's our third part. I thought I saw him enter. If you wanted to say something very quickly, and we'll begin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just wanted to introduce myself as the financial end of the company, and a little bit along the same lines as what Demetrios said. If you need to reach out, consider me an extra resource for you guys to reach out to. And if you have any questions or want to get anyone's attention, I'm around. Thanks a lot, and thanks for making the time. I appreciate it, guys.
All right. So with that being said, and the basic introductions here, I'll begin the presentation. So, our tagline, is transforming the laws of sound. We're a play on words here because that's the only place you'll find transformers in our products. Okay, those dreaded transformers that have been used for years and years and years, right? Our basic value proposition, what are we all about? Zero-Ohm Systems allows installers to connect 20, 40 speakers or more in parallel to any amplifier without worrying about speaker loads, impedance, and long cable runs. So simplicity and improved sound quality. In the end, all of your customers, your end customers don't know, 8 ohms, Ohm's law. They don't know all this, right? All they know is what they hear. And a lot of times they'll say to themselves, yeah, but can't you make that sound better? You're the expert. So, our primary value proposition is to be able to deliver large scale projects using full range sound. So that's our main value proposition. Who are we before we met Dave? So we're a global sort of manufacturing and licensing company. We're a disruptive technology. I mean, we make no bones about this. We are proud of and to wear that badge of honor. And that's why we're really thrilled to have Dave on board, because as you know, Dave's not shy. And you know what? We're disruptive. This is not just another, amplifier company, okay? We are offering a different solution. And as Demetrios says, it may not be for every single job, but there's a tremendous amount of jobs out there where you could get some really good value, okay? We have a utility path in the US, Europe, and Russia. We have worldwide distribution. We're now on 5 continents and growing pretty much by the day. Our official launch was actually at InfoComm 2017. That was our big launch. We were part of an innovation showcase, which we won. And we're proud of that because it wasn't just some contest online being voted on by people that don't know what we're talking about. It was at InfoComm, which is a show for professionals. It wasn't CES, where I give a lot of sort of fans that show up. You know, we had our display there, and the pros in the industry saw what we had, and they voted for our product as best new technology. Also, 2 weeks before the COVID shutdown, we were named the best of show at ISC, which we've gone through the last couple of years pre-pandemic. So that's a little bit about who we are and our background. But I'm sure that sort of things that you're most interested in are, well, you know, where is this installed? I want to start before I get into all the details by letting you know that our technology is not in the testing phase. We have installations that go back 5 years plus. Okay. So here's one of the installations that went up a couple of years ago. It is an ancient Roman theater, and for the first time they had proper sound. It's in southern France. It's called the Arena de Nîmes, and the guys who were, there was a whole sort of project with a reenactment of the Roman times, and they sort of created this this Zero-Ohm full range sound for this major sort of event over here. One of the ones that obviously is the most high profile installations that we had was with the National Stadium of Denmark. Okay, so as you can see there, there's a rack of Zero-Ohm units with the amplifiers. So if you saw the game this year where Mr. I believe his name was Eriksson, fell to the ground, it was kind of a scary moment. Well, it was in this stadium, had nothing to do with Zero-Ohm, but thank God he's fine. This was a nice moment for us, obviously, and a big installation done in Denmark, just to show you the type of scale that we could do. So this install really talks about, obviously very large scale. And each one of these examples I'm going to show you shows something a little bit different, okay? So this one is all about scale. The next install I will show you, now we're really talking scale, actually even more than the stadium. So this is one of the earliest installs. It was done in a city center in Southern Europe. And what's interesting about this is it demonstrates, obviously, a huge scale, as I've already said, but also the ability to sort of increase the size over time. Overall, there's 160 speakers connected at 8 ohms, 60 watts each, connected in parallel, basically running on 3 amps. You have the lines, as you can see, long distances here, 2,900 feet, 3,600 feet, 34 speakers, 38 speakers. And what's interesting about this as well, beyond obviously the numbers you see in front of you, is the fact that, like many projects, especially big projects, city projects, or projects in general, everyone faces budget constraints. So this started off, I think it was 2 lines, but the interest was there to have it be much more expansive. So they tried it out, and it was designed in a way that they could add to that line pretty easily, moving forward. And, at this point in time, it's now running 4 different lines, and it spans the entire sort of little city center near the port town itself.
George,
so, again, yes.
If I can jump only here, just to add a little note concerning this project in city center, right? What happens is that because it was the city in question that was, I guess the town had a bid out to see, who can fulfill, within the specs, the project, right? And obviously because money was obviously a big issue on the bids, the person who did the actual project there was able to get in there, and when everybody else was, and again, this is the information that was shared with us back then with the installer, when everybody was going, bidding on the project with maybe 10 to 12 to 15 amplifiers, he was able to come in and do the same job and better quality sound-wise with 3 amplifiers. Hence the reason why he was able to win this project when it was out for tenders, right? So just a little note, because I think that's important for us to realize that, again, when we're when we're bidding on tenders and when we're looking to have win a project for that matter, this is where I believe we're able to add arsenal to your bids by allowing you to be, and again, all depending on the job, more cost effective.
Yeah,
and obviously better sound. Go ahead, Drew.
If I could close that off as well. So on the other side, the 70 volt sort of install, obviously you weren't getting, 100 volts. Yeah, thank you. You weren't getting the same sort of sound quality, which was, in the end was part of that bid, what they were looking for. So I'll go on to the next one here. So this is another sort of, we'll get to that one in a second. Dave, hold on over there. But this is another, another sort of high profile installation that has occurred in the last couple of years. The Martinez Hotel, very famous hotel in Nice. So they actually refurbished the place using our system along with void acoustic speakers on this particular job. We were supposed to have a big sort of display or article in Innovate magazine, but you know, the hotel at the last minute sort of kiboshed all that and stopped that from coming out there. But in the end, this is another important installation that demonstrates the type of thing that we can do. But a little bit closer to home, and that's where I'll bring Dave in right now, as you saw recently. We had the Maldron Hotel. So Dave, maybe I should quote you. It sounds better if I quote you than you quote yourself, and then you can talk about it. So here's what Dave says, a very prominent gentleman, as you know. As a prominent domestic AV installer of 22 years, Zero-Ohm gave us an incredibly powerful tool where we could use our experience to offer a full range of high performance and high aesthetic specs. This gave us a truly unique tool and an edge over our competition. My honor to quote you, Dave. Now give us some more detail about this job.
We actually spec'd this job in the first lockdown, and at the time we'd spec'd 100-volt speakers and cloud amplifiers. We weren't that happy with. We did realise that if we were going to have Zero-Ohm, we needed to do something big, and we needed to show that you can put your trust in this, because it's a huge leap of faith to go, I'm going to put non-100-volt speakers into a job. Because if it doesn't work, you've got non-100-volt speakers in your job. And we needed to see that for a job this size, that it worked. And it did. It worked incredibly well. In this job, we've got Beale Street around the actual hotel. We've got Gallo in the restaurant. And we could sit down with the designer. We could sit down with the hotel owners. And we could go, well, what speakers do you want? We didn't have to put 100-volt boxes or 100-volt in ceilings. We could go for things that we were comfortable with and we knew were good speakers. We knew the Gallo would give us the sound we were looking for. We knew we could put the subwoofers into it as well. We knew that the Beale Street gave us the sound that we wanted in the hallways, and we just had freedom to do that. So it worked incredibly well along those lines, and it's better than any 100-volt system that we have ever put in. So as I said, we've done 9 now, and we spec it in all the jobs that we're doing commercially, whether it's a small venue or whether it's a bigger venue. We're doing an ice rink. We've got a stadium, a football stadium that we're quoting for as well. So it is something you can get behind, and you need to see it working to realize that it is the new way that it's going to go. It's where 100-volt was when 100-volt was launched, and it's worth seeing that. And anyone who's in Glasgow and going to Malden and see what we've done.
Thank you, Dave. So, you know, one of the things that we like to talk about is if these products were just invented right now, 70-volt systems and Zero-Ohm systems, you know, I think when you look at it in the end, the sacrifice that's been made for years and years, and I always go back to this quote. The first show that Demetrius and I went to, I asked the consultant, I said, listen, you know, tell me, just humor me for a second. What do you think of transformers? And he says, okay, nobody's ever asked me that question. And he thought about it. He gave me the perfect quote, and it was actually used in a recent article that was posted. And he says to me, I do everything I can to avoid them, but they're a necessary evil. And so that really is the essence of what our company is all about, right? I mean, because as I said earlier on, your customers, they don't know 70 volt, they don't know 100 volt, they don't know 8 ohm, 2 ohm, they don't know what ohm is. What they do know is, hey, you know, can't you make that sound a little bit better, right? And we're trying to find solutions, first of all, to simplify your lives, because these installs are daisy chained, right? I mean, we're talking about sort of parallel connections. We're selling a passive unit, and so obviously there's a lot of advantages there, but I'll get to more of that in a couple of minutes. I want to show you a couple of more installs. So once again, I'll quote Dave so that he doesn't, quote himself in this case over here. And here he goes. And sorry for my Canadian accent. The awesome guys of 5 March Glasgow wanted some Gallo speakers on a 100-volt line system. And the only way we could do this was through ugly boxes to house even uglier transformers to convert 100-volt to 8 ohm. It looked awful, and the sound was only transformer level. So along comes Zero-Ohm and says, and this is typical Dave, hold my beer. That was horrible. That was a horrible accent. I apologize. We took down that sounded more like Texas. We took down the existing amp from 100 volt to 8 ohm, took out the transformer and junction box, and instead wired straight into speaker, put a Zero-Ohm 2-zone box between amp and speaker, and voila, we had a superior sound and no transformers. Genius Zero-Ohm, I'll take that compliment any day, is a must, is not that I invented it, is a must for adding in awesome speakers in commercial settings. So Dave, with that setup, what can you add?
Well, you can see there the gallows that they wanted to put into the restaurant. We had no place that we could hide the really ugly transformers to make them into 100 volt. So we had to put these really dumb enclosures next to the speakers, and it defeated all the essence of gallow, as everybody knows if they know Colin and they know the speakers that they do. So we had to have them. There was nothing else that we could do with it. When Zero-Ohm came along, we updated the system to have them into it. And it meant that we could get rid of all those boxes, all the transformers, quick paint, and it was sorted. So yeah, it's genius.
Yeah, and I much appreciate this image that you sent, because it really sort of it adds obviously another element which as installers you see every day, but it's an important aspect to sort of point out. So this was your point that you made before, right? I mean, Zero-Ohm sort of opens you up to your favorite speakers instead of being sort of limited to specific speakers in certain job settings. All of a sudden now you could sort of spec in some of your favorites in places that normally you wouldn't have. And I think that sort of summarizes what you're trying to say here, Dave.
Yeah, 100%. That's the key factor to take from it. It gives you freedom to talk to the client, to talk to the designers, and really match into what their vision is from the place rather than making do with what you can provide them. It gets you into more of a conversation with them about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple of more case studies, and then we'll get to a chance to sort of ask some questions. This is one more install I wanted to share with you. It's a beach bar in Vietnam, and the reason we always talk about this in our presentations is the fact that the gentleman who did this installation, he went back there about a month later, and the owner came up to him and says, you know what, I've owned bars, restaurants, hotels for 20, 30 years, and I've never had sound like this. The customers have noticed. So that type of word of mouth, and that sort of positive word of mouth, and delivering, especially with somebody, maybe this person had complaints to their previous installer, or maybe even the same installer, and I'd gone to him on a previous job and said, we want more, and so to be able to deliver that and get that, there's no better sort of sales tool than a satisfied customer. So that's why we have this example over here. It's not huge scale like some of the other jobs we've shown you, but again, most jobs are smaller or medium sized, etc. This is a perfect example of that, delivering quality to your end end client. I have one more that I want to show you here. So now each one of these is showing a different aspect. This one is all about being time tested. It shows performance, reliability, and durability. So this install goes back about 4 years, if I remember correctly. The install is in Southern Europe. So as you know, these water parks, they tend to play music loud. As you can see, it's 400-watt speakers. They tend to play their music loud, and they tend to play them loud for long periods of time, right? Especially in Southern Europe. Unlike us Canadians and the Scots, people in the UK, etc. We have a slightly different weather than they do in the South. And so our seasons are a little bit shorter. I think Dave called the summer, 2 months ago, we had a Monday. He says that was our summer. It's a little different down here. So these speakers have been tested, have been pushed using our Zero-Ohm system, and we've never had an issue whatsoever, and haven't had a callback. So that's just a testament, and this is just one example. It's not the most high-profile example here, but it does demonstrate performance, reliability, and durability. So everything I've showed you up till now really sort of comes down to this sort of summary slide here, and then we'll take some questions right after this. So what are the weaknesses of 70 volt, 100 volt? I think they're well documented. The transformer quality, we have degradation, low frequency deficiencies, and there are some, that are better than others, but they tend to cost a lot more as well. There's the issue of phase interference. There's the issue of transformer design, the equations, the verifications, the fact that if you need to make a change, unlike a sort of daisy chain where you just can add a speaker if you have the headroom, it's a little different, obviously, in the 70 volt, 100 volt world. Transformation installation, the cost of the transformer, the 70 volt, 100 volt transformer based amplifiers as well, tapping. So, that's the 70 volt, 100 volt world. Our advantages, we are selling a passive unit, okay? And I emphasize that because the first time we went to a trade show, we were going to Anaheim, and the U.S. border, the customs are very sort of protective, rightfully so. And we were about to get on the plane, and the border guard says, "Where are you going with that boy?" I'm exaggerating now again, a little sort of Texas accent. But basically, we said, "Look," he says, "Where's the plug?" I said, "There is no plug. It's passive." He looked at us, says, didn't understand what passive was. He put it through the X-ray machine and says, "Okay," took it right under my arm and went on the plane. And that was our sort of first foray before we actually set up our own booths at Infocom and ISC. The absolute vital key here is full range frequency response. No need to sacrifice your low Zs. You're getting cleaner sound with no delays. You're getting plug and play simplicity on new installs and even on some refurbished jobs, obviously depending on the setup there. So those are the main sort of weaknesses of 70-100 volt and the main advantage of Zero-Ohm. Demetrius, if you want to add something right now, would be a good time, and then we'll open up the floors.
If I can just add, I mean, as installers and as people in the industry who have worked with this, you know, it's clean to see after, you know, just a little summary, if we want, of advantages and disadvantages of the 100 volt vis-a-vis what we're able to provide here. I mean, given the fact that we're a completely passive unit, right? And given the fact that the way the installations, and George, and I don't know if you have a diagram as I'm explaining this of the actual installation, right? So you have your amplifier, right? And you have your outs of your amplifier. And what you do is you plug them directly into our unit, right? So the outs of the amplifier in the inputs of our unit. And then what happens after that is that when you take your speaker line, you don't plug it back into the amplifier. You plug it into our unit, our passive unit. What that does is that it basically camouflages or it does not allow the amplifier to realize what the impedance is. Therefore, when you're doing an installation and you don't realize in the amplifier, because it never sees the line, right? You're plugging it into our unit. You're not going back to the amplifier. Because it never sees what the impedance is, you're able to surpass the load of the amplifier, right? The minimum load of the amplifier, whether it's 2 ohms, 4 ohms, 6 ohms, wherever it works safely, given the fact that it doesn't see the line load, it doesn't realize what's happening. So the only thing our technology is doing is we're drawing the maximum wattage available from that amplifier, regardless of on what it's producing, right? Whether it's producing more at 8 ohms, at 4 ohms, or at 2 ohms, we're drawing the maximum wattage from the amplifier. And then what we're doing is we're driving that current, that power down your speaker line. What that does, obviously, is like traditionally speaking, when you're doing an installation, and every installation has a budget. We all know that. Everybody knows that. So somebody calls you and says, hey, I need sound in this room. You know, again, take into consideration that a room is, you know, rectangular or a shape, right? Traditionally, because sound travels, what we're prone to doing, given the fact that we want to keep one amplifier and keep the job within budget, is you're going to put 4 speakers in each corner, which are 100 watts each. The sound will propagate and cover and fill the room. That's what traditionally we've been doing, right? But now why? Because we need to take into consideration the impedance of the amplifier, given the fact that we want to have one. Therefore, traditionally 2 to 4 speakers should cover the safety load of the amplifier. What we're saying is that because there is no more consideration on the impedance. Impedance is no longer a relative measure for your installation when it comes to using our unit. Therefore, the luxury in using our unit is you don't need to sell your client 4 speakers to put in the 4 corners of the room. Sell them 8, 50-watt speakers, and flood the room with more speakers and allow for more quality and well-balanced sound. Because reality is, on the 4-corner installation, the guy who's sitting in the corner, whereas the guy who's sitting in the center of the room has 2 different sound levels. What we're saying is add more speakers because you don't take into consideration the impedance, have them lower, 8 speakers at 50 watts or 16 speakers at 25 watts. Flood the room with speakers, have better quality sound, well balanced everywhere. These are all sort of benefits that you're able to do, given to the fact that, again, because your speaker line load will go through our unit and never through the amplifier, it will never realize what is going on. And therefore, we're able to draw, the maximum wattage available from any amplifier. And that's another key thing with us, is not only are we passive, but we're very agnostic. We work with any amplifier. We work with any sort of speaker. Yes, granted, you know the industry better than I do when it comes, we have some speakers and some amplifiers which are, are not good quality, right? Then obviously you suffer with whatever quality you use. But generally speaking,
if I could jump in there, Demetrius, the other thing that we've learned over the years and has been told to us over and over again by manufacturers about their competition, never about themselves. Never about themselves, is that when you're doing this, so my last line on this page was get the best of both worlds, 70 volt, in your case, 100 volt capabilities without sacrificing sound quality or install install aesthetics. Well, in terms of the calculation, the only thing that we have that's similar to 100-volt systems is in terms of calculating the amount of speakers, right? So, you take whatever the amplifier can do at 8 ohms, that's what we recommend, at 8 ohms. So let's say it's 1,000 watts. Well, then, 50 times 40, whatever the math adds up to. And obviously using sort of industry standards, like, leaving 20% headroom is what we recommend. Now, the point I was going to make, and I guess Dimitri is going to make it as well, is that what we've learned and what we've been told over and over again by manufacturers is that the most accurate reading on an amplifier installation model, the manual, is the 8 ohm reading. Quite often, there seems to be some sort of, let's say creative liberties being taken for the other one. So we tell our clients really focus in on the 8 ohm. What does it say? It says 1,000 watts. Great. Do the math, calculate that, and you're fine. And just to give you one example of this, we always partner up at these trade shows with different manufacturing companies. At the last trade show at ISE in 2020, when we were there 2 weeks before the shutdown, we partnered with Eclair. And Eclair, they had lent us 22, I think it was 24 or 22 speakers. I don't even remember because it doesn't really matter to us. And
it's not important, George. We don't care how many speakers, we don't care about impedance.
Well, yeah, as long as it doesn't surpass what, the equation we just talked about. And so what happened was the head engineer had come and I was presenting to him and I said, okay, so this amplifier here, the load is 2 ohms. He says, yes, 2 ohms. It said, right now I have 22 speakers. What is the ohmmeter? I haven't calculated. He says, it's a lot less than 2 ohms. I said, so your amplifier shouldn't be playing right now. He says, no, it shouldn't. And, he sat there and he looked at that. And this is, and that's why I said earlier on, you'll see things in his presentation, but there's nothing better than actually, being able to hear it for yourself, et cetera. And this is one of the things that we enjoy about going to these trade shows is to be able to sort of show it firsthand. And again, you have somebody who's an expert in the field that's not too far away from you, and they would be happy to show you exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. We have a unit here as well. That's just to show you what the size is and what the inputs and such like are.
You know what, Dave, if you hold that up for a second, if you could hold that up for 1 second. Yeah, so what Dave is holding that's our 4-channel model, because we have 2 models, right? We have a 2-channel model and we have a 4-channel model. So, and those 2-channel and 4-channel models come in 2,000 watts maximum wattage per channel, or 4,000 watts maximum per channel. So, all relative to whatever job you're doing, you can see that we work with a high wattage sort of limits here, right? So that's very interesting because, if you have a job whereas you have an amplifier that has 4 channels and you have 4 zones you want to create, well, our 4-channel model will answer that call, right? So that I'm glad you held that up, Dave. All
right. So maybe if there are some questions right now, before I go a little bit further, and talk about the perspective of installers, the perspective of end clients, et cetera. And, we just have a couple more things I want to go over. If you have some early questions at this point in time, maybe now would be a good time to sort of ask them, and then I'll just continue on with the last few slides and we'll summarize everything. If anybody has a question right now, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll keep going, and we can do that at the end.
And George, I'm just going to repeat I don't know if everyone was there at the beginning. Rest assured that, as you're trying to absorb this, presentation, or what we're trying to explain to you as this, revolutionary, I guess, sort of device here. I just want to make clear that questions may come after the presentation. So I stress and I urge you to please, let us know, send us an email, send myself or Dave or George, send us all, actually copy everybody, and let us know what questions you may have, regardless whether you have a question now or whether you have it later. We're always there to answer it. So I just want to make that clear as well. Go ahead, George.
All right. So what are people saying about Zero-Ohm systems? Let's see what some of the popular press has done. So this is a really important one, which we will be happy to share with anyone. There was a 6-page independent review, because we could talk all day, and obviously, we have a vested interest. It's our company. But Sonomag, one of the top magazines in France, did an article about us about 2 years ago. It was a 6-page independent review. So they actually farmed it out to somebody, I believe it was in southern France, if I remember correctly. And he tested our units, and he wrote a 6-page review. We have an English translation that we gladly send out to you, and you can see some technical data, some information about that, and the type of tests that he did in that process. And maybe if we have some time at the end, Demetrius, you could get into some detail about that. But like I said, we're happy to share that because it is a third person who did that review, and you know, it was a very positive review. We've been in all sorts of industry magazines. Here's LSI Online talking about Zero-Ohm brings innovation to Infocom. These are our early days back in 2018, a little bit after we had won Infocom, the Innovation Showcase. But these are the type of quotes that I really want to share with you. Here's a quote from an installer in Texas. Maybe that's where I got the Texas horrible accent. They came up with a way to get rid of transformers, tapping, and design equations. Just run the same line to all the speakers, and your installation is done. Okay, so the gentleman out of Texas. So obviously installers are our lifeline. And what's important is you're the ones that basically are the ones that are there on the front lines and get all the feedback from the customer, right? Especially the ones that haven't done installs before and say, hey, can't you make it sound better than that? I think we can do better than that, etc. This is a video. I'm not going to play it here right now, but I could send a link. If any of you speak Cantonese, that would be a big help because this is from our distributor in Hong Kong. What he does here that's kind of interesting that we want to recreate ourselves is near the end of the video, he actually has a song playing, and then he's like, okay, so this is it, full range sound. This is it through a 70 volt, 100 volt system. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. So it's a kind of interesting video that I can share with you as well.
So the audible difference, right? So when you listen to it, it's clear that what you're getting from a full range, sound coming out of your speaker, as opposed to a tampered sound coming out of a transformer that's embedded inside a speaker. Let's be honest here. When the speaker manufacturers created the speakers, their idea, the concept behind it was that, we want a good quality cone, good quality speaker, and, let's play straight through. It was never the intention to add transformers inside. The market requested and needed the transformer to be added for certain installations or for certain jobs. So again, a transformer is an add-on, right? So what we're trying to do is again, remove or eliminate that add-on and have whatever brand and quality speakers you have to use in the project, we allow that. So again, I think that's a very important key. And coming back very quickly to the Sonomag article, it was our French distributor who called us and said, I was contacted from a magazine, and they don't believe that what you guys are claiming is actually true. Do you mind? And they've asked me if we can share this with an independent lab that the magazine has appointed, right, in order for them to do testing. And we said, sure. Seeing is believing, right? And hearing and testing is believing as well. So that's when we gave it out. And what's important here is that the magazine, when they were doing this, and you know what, I know George said later, but I'll just jump in very, very quick because I think it's important here, right? What they were doing is measuring. So he had two sort of comparables, right? Similar to our Hong Kong, when he has one comparable, be it with Zero-Ohm system going through Zero-Ohm, and another one going directly through the 70 or 100 volt system, right? So what he was doing here, he was, he completely eliminated from the equation just to compare, a regular setup, right, with speakers with no 70 or 100 volt transformers. So he had two speakers plugged into an amplifier. He made his readings, and he saw, he had a reading on frequency response. Then what he did is that he did the same amplifier, the same speakers, but this time going through a Zero-Ohm system. So as the measurements were coming out, he was able to compare the charts. And what he came out with a conclusion is that there's absolutely no difference whether you're going directly to the amplifier with your speakers or going through Zero-Ohms, which again, zero losses on frequency response. So it's identical. We have a flow through system essentially, which again allows us to be able to claim and say that when it comes to quality of sound, right? When it comes to no losses within going through our unit, that is proven and from independent studies. And what's interesting about that article, if you're interested and we send it to you and we had it translated in English, is that you'll see that he continues the test. He stays with the same frequency response, if you want, on the direct sort of plug-in with the amplifier, but he keeps on adding speakers on the Zero-Ohm side. And his conclusion is no matter what I add, it's remarkably stable. So I wanted to bring that point out.
And actually, when we get to those last couple of slides there, that we could add a couple of little details there. Here's another example of a testimonial. Okay, so we after that show in Infocom in 2017. we were approached by a major manufacturer, and the head engineer of this company, he was one of the people that voted for us, right? He was at the booth, and he's like, "You're doing what?" And we had a multimeter, and he tested it out, and he looked at it and says, "You're going to win this competition." He says, "Hands down," And then he asked us, "Can I take it? We run this big festival in Belgium, and I want to test it out." What they did at this festival became a bit of a legend, because what happened was they were powering. I forget the exact detail. I know that they were powering. I think was it 6 subwoofers? They were going well beyond even beyond what we recommend. So we don't recommend what they did. They actually bridged a two-channel unit together, and they were running like 7,000 watts. We don't recommend this, but they did it. They did it for 3 full days at an EDM festival. And he called me up and he says, "George," he says, "we tested it, we were impressed, and it was remarkably stable, word for word." I'd love to share this gentleman's name because he's very well known. He's very well known. Some of you probably know him, but the reality is we have an NDA, so I can't share those exact details. But what's funny about this is last year, right before the pandemic, I guess a year and a half ago or 2 years ago almost now, as we were talking about it, and I mentioned this, somebody, I think it was a gentleman who was from Holland. He says, that's what happened. I was at that show. We were trying to figure out what they were doing. He says, we were all sort of scratching our head and trying to figure out what we were doing. I said, well, yeah, they had signed an NDA, so they couldn't share either. However, says, okay, it all makes sense now. So it's funny how, it's a small world, and so how that sort of came out there. But again, tested here, we're talking at a very, very high level. And you know what those EDM festivals are like, 3 days nonstop.
Yeah. I again, if I can jump in here, just to reiterate the fact that two concepts allow us to be a good fit, especially for subwoofers. As you all know, subwoofers, for one, draw a very low impedance, work on very low impedances. So your amplifier when you're driving subwoofers really needs to be powerful and really needs to have low impedance sort of measurements, as well as they draw a lot of power, right? Because of that low impedance. So we're able to drive 2,000 to 4,000 watts per channel. So that again allows for a good solution when it comes to subwoofers, as well as no consideration of impedance. So both provide both, because of those two concepts. When it comes to subwoofers or plugging subwoofers, our system is very well adapted to that.
Yeah. So Dimitri's going through the last couple of slides here, and I'll do my conclusion right after.
Yeah, so here's exactly what I was just mentioning. So you see the top line here, the yellow one, right, is basically a measurement on a speaker going through, direct 8-ohm sort of measurement on the frequency. And then the bottom one is going through our system. Once you superimpose these, which is the next slide, you'll notice that there's absolutely no deviation. There's absolutely no losses experienced through going through a zero-ohm system. And here, the last one is just phase response. Again, you'll see that it superimposes both sort of measurements, and you'll see that there's, a minimal to no losses here regarding the phase response.
Yeah, so if I could just summarize here, and this is our conclusion here. By comparing the sonic difference between a conventional system and a zero-ohm system, we can see the frequency response is nearly identical, as Dimitri just said. And as we add those zero-ohm unit to the chain, it does not change anything in the frequency response or phasing of the connected components. My big line, and that's why I loved when I saw the post that Dave put up there about, hold my beer, etc. The world of sound is not flat. Our installations deserve this kind of sound. I go back to what that consultant said to me. I do everything I can to avoid them. They're a necessary evil. Well, guess what? There's a knight in shining armor that can give you something a little bit different and will allow you to deliver that quality sound to your customer. And avoid something that, if it was invented today and you put them side by side, they would look at it and say, well, why would I use that? When I could have this and deliver the quality sound to my end consumer. And that's the essence of what we're all about. Okay. As we said at the beginning, we're not for every single job, but there's an awful lot of jobs out there that deserve to have that, better sounding quality sound and simpler installation as well. And that's pretty much it, gentlemen and ladies, excuse me.
Just to say to everybody that the article and the recording for this will be sent out in an email after this to everybody. So you'll get that later on today. Has anyone got any questions?
Is there a limit to how many you can put into an installation?
Yeah, so in terms of limitations, the only limitations that there are in terms of wattage, right? You have to have enough sort of juice to power the system. And that's why I emphasize the point of we advise people to use the 8-ohm reading, because we've seen, and we, like I said, we've been told by manufacturers. In fact, we had one manufacturer, a very big manufacturer, say, I'm actually going after my competition for false claims, et cetera, et cetera. So although our units are 2,000 watts and 4,000 watts, it doesn't mean you can plug 2,000 watts worth of speakers and it's going to work, right? Your power source is the amplifier, right? We're a passive unit. So if your amplifier could provide 1,000 watts at 8 ohms, well, then you could safely plug in, 1,000. Although obviously, like industry standard, we recommend that you go 800, you leave a little bit of headroom, et cetera. The other thing that we always say, because we're sort of a daisy chained connection, right, is that when you have a customer who's had to sacrifice, because their budget was being exceeded, what we tell you to do is very simple, right? Let's say you have to, you're putting in 20 speakers, but you know that the project, their ideal project is 30 speakers. Well, make sure you sell them a slightly bigger amp and tell them, say, hey, listen, I'm putting you this amp that has a little bit of extra wattage. Whenever you're ready, give me a call. You walk in there. 6 months later, you call up that customer. Hey, how's the sound? How is it compared to what it used to be, et cetera? And then you call them up. Are you interested in the extra 10 speakers? Chances are a year later or 6 months later, they may call you anyways if they have a little bit more budget. But the simplicity of going in to one of our installations and adding an extra 10 speakers and getting yourself an extra sale and delivering to the customer, because they had budget constraints, but they knew what they wanted. They just couldn't do it all at the same time. So look at it from that perspective as well. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Dave, is there anything you want to add right now as well?
No, I think what you were saying about adding the speakers is really good, because you just link them into a speaker. You don't have to take it back to the amplifier. You just link it in, because it's similar to 100 volts, but you're doing it with the Zero-Ohm system instead. So it works really well.
Yeah, and there's no recalibration here, right? That's the other big difference, right? So, it's a simple addition, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
All right, excellent.
Right, if anyone has any questions, you'll have everyone's emails in the email as well. So you can email direct, or you can email us, or whatever you want to do. There'll be more than enough information you'll need there. Okay. And genuinely thank you all for coming along. Because during the day, during the working day, you can't get time back. You can earn more money, but you can't get time back. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Bye, guys.
Hey, guys. Take care.
Better. Everyone's looking for a leave button.
Yeah, I guess we should be the last two to leave there, Dave.
Yeah.
All right, that's it as well. All right, so Dave, any final questions or comments, or
no?
actually,
I think
let me just stop the recording.